Jeremiah Fears is one of the most dynamic offensive guards in this entire draft class. When the Pelicans selected him with the 7th overall pick, analysts immediately saw how his speed and scoring punch could fit the roster. But when you turn on the film, you see more than just potential. You see a blur with the ball, a guard who's aggressive in hunting his shot and is unafraid of the moment. So the question then becomes, can that explosiveness translate into efficient NBA production, or will his weaknesses hold him back? Let's break it down.
Counterattack, step in three, Fears turns it down, glides in and punches one.
Jeremiah Fears gave the Pelicans fans a glimpse of both his upside and inexperience in the Summer League. In 5 games, he averaged 17 points, 4 rebounds, and 3 assists, with his best outing coming against the Thunder, 22 with 6 boards, 6 assists in 30 minutes. But the efficiency wasn't there just yet. He shot 40% from the field, a really rough 18% from 3, and turned it over 5 times a night. The film backs it up, and he's a guard who plays with speed and confidence. He was capable of creating offense on command, but still searched for that consistency and polish. So that's where his college track record offers a little bit more context. So overall, I think it's a Summer League performance that gives you hope, gives you some optimism for what he's going to be for the Pelicans next year. But overall, you see some of the concerns that scouts saw. So with that, let's move into the college side of things. At Oklahoma, Jeremiah Fears was asked to carry a massive load right away for the Sooners offense. He delivered 17 points, 4 boards, and 4 assists with nearly 2 steals a game. He earned all SEC honors, but beyond those numbers, what really stood out for me was how he could turn defense into offense. And it's really in an instant. His speed and aggressiveness in the open floor made him one of the most dangerous scorers in the entire nation in transition. So we're going to start right there with just the impact he makes when he gets out and runs. With Jeremiah Fears on the floor, every possession has the chance to turn into a fast break. So few guards in this draft can change ends as quickly and as dangerously as Jeremiah does. So the numbers all back it up. He shot 58% in transition at Oklahoma and averaged over a point per possession on those opportunities. He was constantly just putting pressure on the defense. So overall, while he was at Oklahoma, he ranked in the 75th percentile for time spent in transition, which is really good. Simply put, when the game sped up, he thrived, and you see that throughout the tape. But the thing is, it wasn't just raw speed. For a guard known for his burst, he's also super crafty, uses angles really well, and has creativity around the rim that helps him finish over bigger defenders. He reads the space really well and punishes the defenders the moment they make a mistake and forces them to guard every turnover, every rebound like it could be a layup on the other end. So transition for him is where his athleticism and instincts shine the brightest. It's a part of his game as well that's going to translate effortlessly to the NBA because the game's going to speed up and it's going to work out really well. Now, one of the biggest questions about Jeremiah Fears coming out of Oklahoma was his shooting. On paper, the numbers don't look very good at all. But was he really as bad as they seemed? And for me, the film actually gives us some reasons for optimism. While Jeremiah Fears' overall percentages raised red flags, and rightfully so, his catch and shoot numbers tell a fairly optimistic story. So on 61 attempts over the course of the year, he converted at over 36%. And when he was left unguarded, that number climbed all the way up to 38% plus. So on the tape, there's a clear reason why, and you'll be able to see it. He's quick to square his feet. His release is really clean, very repeatable, and he doesn't waste a ton of motion. So just as important is when he plays well off the ball, he's moving and relocating in ways you don't see from young lead guards. They tend to struggle with that because they're just used to being so ball dominant. So that skill set projects especially well in New Orleans when he's playing next to a guy like Zion Williamson, who he's bending the defense every single possession, and he has other scorers on the court with him too, like DeJounte Murray and Jordan Poole. So with that being said, Fears should find himself with far more open spot-up looks, the exact type of shots where he's already shown he can be efficient. And to me, that's why catch and shoot is one of the biggest reasons of optimism for his game moving forward. So if Jeremiah Fears proved that he could knock down spot-up shots, then why did his overall percentages look so poor? Well, I think the answer probably lies in his shot selection. So this is where the numbers get kind of ugly. So when he shot threes off of the dribble, Jeremiah Fears hit just 15 of 73 attempts, and that's barely 20%. So when you study the film, it just isn't just a matter of misses, it's the kind of shots he's taken. And for me, too often he had his mind made up before the defense even reacted. It's really easy to see on the film. You'll see him pulling up as if he's created so much space, only to go into his launch and find himself in a heavily contested, high-difficulty jumper. So the bigger question is why this happened. Is this a byproduct simply of him being asked to do too much at Oklahoma, pressing out of necessity, or is it more of an ingrained habit in how he approaches the game? Now, I think it's one of those is much easier to fix than the other, but either way, if Fears is going to maximize his potential in the NBA, improved shot selection is the biggest paramount to success. So it's something he's going to have to focus on really, really heavily. Now, while his pull-up shooting struggled, Jeremiah Fears wasn't ineffective off the bounce across the board. In fact, he showed some real success as an isolation scorer. Isolation was a real part of Jeremiah Fears' game at Oklahoma. He logged 67 isolation possessions, ranking in the 85th percentile for frequency among all college guards. And while the efficiency wasn't elite, he had just 0.925 points per possession every game. The tape shows a guard that was capable of making some really tough plays. Now, what stands out for me was his feel for when he attacked switches out of ball screens. He consistently identified mismatches. He put himself in position against a slower defenders that he had put on an island and forced them to move their feet. So unlike some of his perimeter pull-ups, in isolation, he was generally more aggressive going to the rim, and his quickness and creativity made him extremely difficult for those bigs to contain. So it's clear he wasn't always efficient, but the foundation of an effective one-on-one score is definitely there. So beyond scoring, Jeremiah Fears also flashed some good instincts as a facilitator. He's not just a bucket getter, he kind of showed me the ability to create for teammates too. So Jeremiah Fears actually led Oklahoma in assists last season, and the film gives me a really good idea of why. He's got a really great feel for finding those outlets when defenses collapse on him, and he consistently hits his bigs on the roll, when their help defenders overcommitted on his drives. So if you pair that with his speed and his passing ability, it makes him especially dangerous in transition, simply because he can push the tempo himself or create easy looks for teammates by drawing their attention or pitching the ball up the court. So that said, there are still questions about his consistency as a ball mover. He flashes the reads, but there are stretches where the ball sticks too long and the offense just slows down around him. And the instincts are there, but tightening up his decision-making is going to be key at the next level if he wants to get better at this part of his game. It's something that's it's a big ask for him. Now, on the other end of the floor, Jeremiah Fears showed some really good natural defensive instincts. It's the kind of tools that give him a real chance to stick around in an NBA rotation. So Jeremiah Fears didn't just carry Oklahoma's offense, he also led the team in steals. And that quickness translated to the defensive end because he read the passing lanes really well. He broke on the ball with anticipation and turned it instantly really into transition chances. So that's the same speed that fuels his offense, only now it works in reverse, creating extra possessions, creating easy points. So the defense to offense was a clear strength for him as a freshman, and it's an area that should carry over really well when he gets to the NBA. So I love this part of his game. So speaking of turning defense into offense, the last thing that really stands out is Jeremiah's natural athleticism. For a guard, he's explosive in space, and you see flashes of vertical pop when he gets downhill. He only finished with 9 dunks last season, but the fact that he showed that kind of burst as a freshman suggests that this is an area of his game that could grow with even more time in the NBA. So with his speed, quickness, and flashes of leaping ability, there's plenty of upside mixed in with his athletic profile, which is something that I think is going to build as he gets bigger and stronger. So as I put a bow on all of this and start to move into my final thoughts, I want to address just how I view the pick. And I've said this in other videos that I've done, but for me, smaller markets and places that don't really attract free agents, they have to take big swings. And for me, Jeremiah Fears might just be the biggest swing of them all because he has defined things he has to get better on. And if he doesn't, then this could be a flop. But I'm of the opinion that they're all correctable things. With what you need him to improve are things that he can get better at. So who do I liken him to in the NBA? I think for me, the most immediate kind of recent guy that comes to mind is Tyrese Maxey with the 76ers. They both were more slashers in college, inconsistent shooting, and Maxey's really figured that out on the NBA level. On the other end, you look at a Russell Westbrook, who was so good in his prime as a driver, and just a stat patter extraordinaire. And that's somewhere where obviously one of the best case scenarios for Fears is that he ends up like Westbrook with a more reliable jumper that maybe shoots it a little more consistently when he's given the looks. Now, as I think about his fit with New Orleans, I can see why a lot of the analysts, Stephen A. Smith in particularly during the draft itself, are so high on him as a player and how he fits into New Orleans, because he's a guy who's going to push the pace when he's on the court. And you're pairing him up with a Zion Williamson, who, if you can keep healthy, is someone that's going to feast off of that. Like, he's a guy that can run the floor with Jeremiah Fears and give him that outlet and that option. I really love that, and I like some of the other scores that they have around him. I think him playing with DeJounte Murray could be interesting as well. Really kind of similar players. And overall, what I'm most excited about with Jeremiah Fears is his, like I mentioned it in the clip packages, but as he moves into the NBA and the scouting report changes on him and people aren't as locked in and dialed to him, coupled with the fact that he's not going to be asked to do as much, I think that that's just going to allow him to naturally be a little more efficient, which is one of the biggest knocks on him coming out of college. So that plays really well into his hand. And when you start projecting him out and thinking about him as a player and how he's going to look 3, 5, 10 years down the road, that to me can speak volumes about where he's going to go in his career. So with all of that being said, let's talk about what I project him as. So I think, similar to Westbrook, it might take a couple of years for him to really start to tap into that potential a little bit more. But I think as you look down the road, I would view a midterm starter. So, in the early to midterm, he's someone that's going to be able to step into that starting lineup, define a role, get better at some stuff. But then he's a long-term difference maker for this franchise. So he's someone that, as you stretch that timeline out and you start looking at it 5, 10 years later, that's when you start looking at him as a franchise cornerstone. And how does that align with some of the other core pieces that they have? It's going to be interesting to see how they approach that. So what does he need to do in order to reach that? We've talked about it in the clip packages, but he has to be more efficient. I think that if he can make a living by keeping the defenses honest on his catch and shoot looks and just kind of take a little bit of a step back from some of those off the dribble jumpers, because he can still do that, and he's going to need to from time to time to keep him honest, but that can't be the main part of his game. That has to scale back some and be more of that facilitator and creator with the ball in his hands, but just grow that part of his game and then get a little more consistent around the rim, utilize the space that he's going to get in the NBA. And I think if he can do those two things, then it's going to help him out immensely. But New Orleans fans, it's that time of the video to chime in. Let me know what you think. I'm interested to hear your feedback. What do you feel about the pick? Did Summer League change that opinion at all? And where do you view him as a cornerstone for the Pelicans franchise? And how do you think the next 3 to 5 to 10 years are going to pan out? Let me know. Looking forward to having that discussion in the comments. And thank you to everyone for being here. I greatly appreciate it, being part of the community. If you feel inclined to do so, please do subscribe. That helps me out more than you know. You'll get updated whenever I put out new videos. I think this is the 8th or 9th pick of the lottery I've done one of these breakdowns on, and I'm going to do more as we go along and then get into college and college basketball, pro football. I'm going to put a lot of content out there. So again, join the community if you'd like to. I really hope to see you guys on the next one.